Do not let the internet dictate what works for you and your family, okay? We don't always get to sit at the table and eat together. And today we are having spaghetti and meatballs straight out the jar, straight out the pack. Let's go. And here's my thing. Just because it's out of the jar does not mean that you can't spruce it up or add your own stuff. And that's what I do all the time. So I always use like ground beef. I know mine looks a little bit frozen. It was not frozen. My husband has the temperature turned up to Antarctica in our refrigerator, not even a freezer, but that's for another story. So we're doing ground beef. And then I am using these Great Value Italian style meatballs. Normally I'll use a full 3 pounds of ground beef if it's just ground beef or if I add smoked sausage. But since I'm doing the meatballs, I'm only using about 2 pounds of ground beef. All right, so I'm just going to brown the ground beef. I am going to add garlic powder, onion powder, and all-purpose seasoning. And give it a mix. All right, and then I am just going to put the meatballs in the oven. Honestly, because these are Italian meatballs, they still have like a little bit of Italian seasoning in them. I don't put anything on them. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to my water for my pasta.
She said the lines or something.
I always like to make sure that my meat, let me see if I could explain this properly. I don't like big chunks of ground beef in my food. Like if I'm doing spaghetti, I like to make sure that my meat is like finely chopped, if that makes sense. Okay, so here's the hardest part, making the sauce from scratch. I like a lot of sauce, so and we're gonna have this for 2 days, if my son and husband allow. So I added the sauce. I'm gonna give it a little mix. Now that I've added the sauce to the ground meat, I am going to add a little bit of barbecue sauce. I only use the original crabs, or I try to only use the original crab, like honey and all of that, no. Why do I add the barbecue sauce? I don't know why I add it. I just add it, but it tastes good. My family loves it. And then I add a little bit of sugar. Controversial, I know, but for sure the sugar takes away the acidity of the spaghetti sauce. So that's why I add the sugar. Now the barbecue sauce is something my daddy showed me a long time ago, and if my daddy say do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna add a little bit. You don't want it tasting like barbecue sauce. It's not barbecue. And then I am going to add a little bit of garlic powder. And just a little bit of onion powder. And then the sugar. I would lie and say a pinch of sugar, but it is bigger than a pinch, I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. No, we don't eat this every day. Yes, I am aware of diabetes. No, whatever else they be saying in the comments, child. And then before I add the meatballs, I'm just gonna give it a little taste. Now that the meatballs are browned, I'm just gonna add that to the spaghetti sauce. Little mix. Oh, we mix it. spaghetti is done, so I am going to do some corn and garlic bread sticks. Why am I doing that? Because that's what my family likes. If y'all don't listen to nothing else I tell you, listen to this. Do not let the internet dictate what works for you and your family, okay? Don't. My family likes spaghetti. I don't want to eat spaghetti all the time, but if it was up to those people, they'll eat spaghetti like every other week. So what do I cook? I cook spaghetti. I don't cook it as often as they ask for it, though. I'm not gonna lie. But my son is at football practice, and my husband is on his way home from work. So the goal for me is always, it's not a requirement in this house, but the goal for me is to have dinner done by the time they make it home. I'm not always able to do so, but they don't trip if I don't. I just like to have the kitchen clean, dinner done. With my oldest daughter being in college, she works. My son has football all the time. My husband works outside of the home. It is always my preference for us to just be able to spend time together when we are all at home at once. Because now that the older kids are a little bit older, we don't always get to spend time together. We don't always get to sit at the table and eat together. So if I cannot be in the kitchen cooking when they get home and they still have a meal, then so be it. And this is the other thing, baby. When they eat, I'm watching them like this. I love. I don't cook every day. You will hardly ever catch me cooking 2 days in a row. As much as I used to cook for leftovers, so I would cook every other day, or I would try to cook every other day. The older my son gets, the more absolutely not. My daughter still eats like a bird. However, nothing brings me greater joy than when they eat all of the food and there's no leftovers. Something about it just makes me feel all warm and tingly inside. And this is the thing. I say this all the time. When I first met my husband, I didn't really know how to cook. Like, I could cook certain things so that my kids could eat, because it was just me and the 3 older kids. But yeah, no, that just was never. For the most part, when I was like a single mom, me and my kids would get out. I would get off work, pick the kids up. We would go and eat at my mom and dad's house, because my dad cooks like almost every day. So I just had no desire. I never had to. Yeah. But I learned how to cook in my own way. I know that I don't have to like do 30,000 steps to make a meal, and my family loves it. When we first met, I tried to cook for my husband, and I knew it wasn't that good because we were not married at the time. But he was like, "Baby, you don't have to cook. It's okay." And then I cooked like beans or something for him one time, and he was eating it, but I noticed he wasn't like eating it, and he was like, "Oh, it was kind of salty, but it was good." He kept saying, "But it was good," because he did not want to hurt my feelings. So I love when they love whatever I cook. So that's why I say, do what works for you and your family. The point of this series is to kind of give you an idea of things to cook. And then another thing that I do when I find, like, if I find menus online, I'll look up the menu just to kind of get like a general idea of what they did. And then I always go and add my own twist, because I know the things that my family likes. I might use jar spaghetti sauce and your family might not like that. You know, you might not like that. That's cool. But then you might have an idea like, okay, well, I don't cook spaghetti like that, but man, I wasn't even thinking about spaghetti here. That, you know, that's something that you could cook. But enough of that. Whatever. And just like that, a simple, satisfying dinner, and it didn't even take me a lot of time. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next time. That's it. That's all. Bye.